Stupid. Let's try this over. Loves of my life. I'm so happy. It's been forever since we have seen each other and talked everything. You guys have been busy. I've been busy, but
yeah, your show has been blooming. You're on 2 different more platforms now than last time.
Yes. So, so that's what we were saying. Like, so now I am on. Today is the debut for Paranormal King Radio Network. So that gets streamed on all kinds of stuff. And then I have my YouTube, and then Inner Demon Media just started to stream Paranormal Brew on there, and BB3 TV. But I think I had BB3 TV the last time you guys were on.
Yes, you did.
Yeah, and then BB3 TV, Inner Demon Radio, YouTube, and then the Paranormal King Radio Network is brand spanking new today. So excited that you guys were my first show for that as well.
Yes. Well, the premiere of Inner Demon Media. Demonologists.
We want to be a stellar guest. We want people to write into you and say, look, never mind the rest of it. When are you having those guys on again? You know?
Oh, wait. Isn't it once a month usually?
It should be. It should be. It should be once a month. That's what we said. But
that was our pact we made.
Yeah, we missed a month, I think. So
we missed a couple.
We missed a couple months now. We were on, what is it, July? We were on probably, no, we were in June, weren't we not? Or was it May?
I think we're on June, or how long has it been? Nah.
So for all of our new listeners, I know you guys hate when I make you do this because I know you guys so well, and you guys have, like I said, you said you were coming on, once a month because there's never such thing as a short convo when it comes to what you guys do. But if you could just give a little bit of a background of Duo Daemonologie so that the people that are brand new and don't know you know what you guys are about.
Okay, we are a research unit, Duo Daemonologie, and there's a reason it's called Duo because it's essentially James and myself. This was James's brainchild, and it's something that had been gestating for a while. We've been thinking of forming something, but we wouldn't see each other for months at a time. We'd run into each other at Paracons, and then James thought maybe we should actually do something with this idea that's been brewing. And well, we are demonologists. That means we, specialize in those more malevolent seeming situations. They still haven't quite defined what a demon is, but that's what we do. That's what we research. And we joined forces and split our ideas and became Duo Daemonologie. Now that's the old spelling in what we call the King James parlance, circa 1604. Actually came into, I think, 1594. And by 1604, it was actually recognized as, the forebearer of modern demonology, where people were actually starting to look into the mind and say, what was happening? What goes on when somebody becomes possessed? What is an evil spirit? What does it do to people? They were starting to analyze more because this was the age of enlightenment and learning, beginnings of. And it's spelled, how do you spell it? Daemonologie. So you can't just write it out. That's the old-fashioned spelling. So that's a nod to the origins of demonology, modern demonology, and nod to the old days, and to us. Because we are melding those disciplines and that learning with the 21st century. We're on a mission to bring this thing called demonology, this discipline, into modern times, truly modern times, because it does have relevance now. It's not just something that was spooky 400 years ago. People come to us with questions about demons and, say they might be troubled by evil spirits. We try to make some sense of it. And of course, we anticipate that there's always going to be more questions than answers. We're not really here to save, people out of situations. We can't always do that, but we can endeavor to help them understand it.
So do you think when you
that was a lot of words,
What'd you say?
Did that make any sense to you, all that?
Me?
Saying?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that made sense. But what I want to say is, there's a lot of the TV shows that have come out now, so it leaves people to think everything in their house is a demon. Right.
That's why we're relevant. That's why it has a purpose now, because people are being somewhat misguided. They're making their own interpretations, their own assumptions. And that really started with the advent of the novel in 1971, The Exorcist, and then the movie that came out in 1974. So people have the solidified Western concept of what is a demon, what are these wicked spirits, and they self-diagnose. So that's why we are relevant now. And why call it something else? Why call it a more boring, less descriptive name? When you say demonologist, people get a misconception, but they pay attention. Then we get a chance to explain what our cause is and what our purpose is and how we approach it. And our definition of demonology is the systematic study of the lore and cultural traditions of wicked spirits. So that's not, like summoning demons and believing them always in a literal sense. It's analyzing each unique situation and trying to make sense out of it.
And he makes a valid point too, where he says the traditions of wicked spirits. If we look at the parlance of King James and demonology and introduction of demonology to literature for people that could read, because a lot of people were illiterate back in those days, unfortunately, and that was the turning point. One of the reasons King James' version of the Bible. But you got to remember, though, is you talk about the exorcist in the Western culture. Look at European culture. Look at a lot of Asian cultures. They, for a long time, their civilizations and their belief systems thought everything was a demon. When without psychology development, even though it is still very early in its infancy, because we still don't understand our brain and reasons why we have certain behaviors, certain traumas, and why certain things happen, right? So everything was equated to be a demon back in the day.
Because it gave them explanations, which people need, reasons.
But in the modern sense of it, we're trying to say, yes, something can exist in a preternatural sense, but that more of it so is the human mind or misunderstandings of natural elements that occur. We see it in paranormal investigation all the time. People using the equipment that they use and don't understand the true meaning of that equipment. So we see it all the time. We're still learning. We're still developing. And Carl said we're demonologists, but there's a difference in what we do to maybe academics. We are both academics, and in a sense, we both read a lot of books, have looked at a lot of theories, and of course, watch our entertainment because we have to understand what's being introduced out into the world. But we're applied demonologists, so we take the academia, the scholasticism of the world, of theology, and we apply it, the characteristics of what people have dealt with before, how it has translated through history, where's the trauma involved. Even though we're not clinical psychologists and by any means, but we take some of what's been introduced into the DSM and neuroscience to understand what plays can be set forth. And then in our intervention or our mediation, we're able to get these people to the right helps. Psychologists, maybe an exorcist or a priest.
Because we're about networking too.
So that's what we are. We're applied demonologists. So we take a lot of what we have learned and studied and what we have learned from other people, and we apply it, and we attempt our best. We cannot always, like Carl and I were talking over dinner, come in with the spirit fingers and begone things, but we can take a very applied approach and do our best to understand. Sometimes we never come up with a conclusion because it's hard to come up with a conclusion when there is no fact in this field.
And with the unseen a lot too.
Yes.
Right. So when people call or reach out to you,
Yes.
they're initially reaching out and saying, I think I have a demon. Or I think my significant other's possessed. I mean, let's be honest, the person that, if there's somebody actually, it's to my understanding, if there is somebody that's actually oppressed and you know, headed down that path of possession or being, I don't know if that's even happening. That person's not going to pick the phone up and call for help.
Probably not. They wouldn't know who to call.
Well, I mean, but also, if something.
But if they are the ones who are being oppressed or possessed, they're not necessarily going to seek help.
Right.
At least not when it advances. They're not
Right.
going to be the ones to pick up the phone and say, I think I need help.
Right. Right.
Ghostbusters.
Yeah. Now, somebody asks what you could classify as a haunted house. Yeah, they're likely to call and reach out more. But one symptom of demonic oppression is that the person becomes more and more withdrawn and would be less inclined to seek out help from an outside agency.
Yeah. And you do make a point, Taryn, too, is that most of the time when people are oppressed, they do see a change within their livelihood. But a lot of people to take it apparent to that it is normal life, because a lot of the times when there are demons in play, there are theatrical elements to it, but it is also very silent but deadly, depending on what your variation of a demon is. Even if it's internalized, even if it's you projecting that demon, it's still going to be sneaky and methodical, because that's what we perceive demons to be in most cases. Insidious. So it's if you're possessed, the likeliness of you knowing you're possessed is very slim to none, unless you come to the realization, or what we don't really necessarily talk about all the time because it's always missed, is obsession. When somebody wants to be and they obsessive over it because they're interested in diabolism or something like that, then they might want it to occur, the invitational process.
Well, yeah, when he says that invitation, by law, a demon has to be invited in to have a hold on somebody. Yeah. But there are many ways to extend that invitation, even not deliberately, even unintentionally.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I remember when I was a part of a group I'm not going to mention, you know, there was one thing that was taught, or that was, you know, told to us, was that, you know, if anybody wants to be, you know, part of a team that goes in to try to handle these negative cases, you know, then that's like a red flag right there, because who wants to be a part of anything like that? You're right. Me, myself, you know, you guys know this because we've talked about this before. I've always stayed clear away from anything as best as I could. Obviously, I'm a paranormal investigator. I do research. So having that door open does open doors. So, you know, I have to be careful. But I'm not going to, you know, put myself knowingly into a position where I think if somebody was like, oh, yeah, I'm having all this stuff happen, and I'm like, that sounds a little, whether it's true or not, you know.
So you wouldn't necessarily want to go on our rounds with us.
Yeah, probably not.
But you do make a good point. There are some people like me. I'm enthusiastic about it. I'm not enthusiastic about finding a demon or dealing with a very traumatic experience within somebody's livelihood, because that's never fun. But, you know, there is a thrill. I think there is a nature also with involved. Carl and I can attest to it, you know, 47 years. And, you know, one of his major moments in his life was almost turning a waypoint. But we have had many points of dissolution, of us not wanting to be involved in this field anymore. Like, I've stepped away countless times, and, you know, there's always something that draws me back, and it's usually a family in need. You know, I take all my websites down. You know, of course, I had social media in some form, but, you know, it still somehow brings you back in. It's like it ropes you back in, because I get a call, and there's not. I usually try my best to always, in those circumstances when I stepped away, is to direct them to other people that I know, of course, because, you know, like Carl said, we network a lot. So, but it pulls you right back in, and there's a family in need, and
like a calling. It does seem like a calling.
Yeah, you can't turn them away because they're so close, and you're the person that can be fastest to get there and to alleviate the situation, maybe not solve the situation and cause an end to it.
Like I was saying, we can't, solve a lot of these problems, and we don't want to advertise or somebody. We're not like clean a demon out of your house. Demon be gone. Like you're the experts. I came to you. How do you get rid of it? Well, we don't really have a good answer to that if we have an answer at all. But when you hear somebody calling out to you and they do want answers or they want some help, at least somebody with some simpatico that can, talk about it with them, somebody experienced, and that's impossible to ignore.
Yeah. So is it true there's some questions here from some people. Two people brought this up, so I'm just going to throw it out there. Abe says, what do you think of generational curses? And Betsy Brown Williams said, what about curses?
There is something to synchronicity. It's borne out time and time again. I swim through synchronicity. Mm-hmm. That question about generational curses is something I'm dealing with presently. Mm-hmm. As of 2 nights ago, I was alerted to this.
You yourself?
Yes. Somebody reached out to me and had questions about it. Do I believe in generational curses? Can they be dealt with? And the answer is kind of a yes and no. Mm-hmm. It's hard for me to accept the premise that somebody was just, like cursed from birth. I think a lot of it has to do with inculcation and environmental. Mm-hmm. It just does, because it's not all that supernatural. But there are influences that can surround somebody, and history can repeat itself. Like the person I'm talking about, she was raised in that environment. They weren't talking about hauntings when she was like 2 and 3 years old, but her parents always had differences and problems, psychiatric problems, and I think it was conveyed that way. And their parents had kind of a shady origin, the grandparents. So it comes down in that sense. Mm-hmm. I don't want to totally dismiss any preternatural inclination there, but it has to do with how the person is, absorbing this information and this influence in this atmosphere. Yeah. That's really what I think it is. Yeah. It has a lot to do with it. And then it becomes its own life. It becomes a generational curse in that sense. Yeah. But as far as actually a hocus pocus curse, I think that's something that can be broken at any time with a positive attitude and the proper counseling and removal from the environment if need be. Yeah, curses just aren't that potent, aren't that strong. It takes the psychological lodestone. It takes somebody believing in it that can happen, really.
Right.
I could
It's almost like now I know it was a movie, but I'm just going to say like the Hoodoo, a Skeleton Key movie, right? Where they were telling her, you have to believe it in order for this to be true, right? I mean, I think the mind is a very, very, I think it's probably the most powerful thing that people don't realize, we have. I mean, I say this all the time. I've known women that have convinced themselves they were pregnant and they really thought they were pregnant and they had all the signs. They did, everything was happening down to the point where like their boobs were leaking. And then I've had people that were actually, and they weren't pregnant. And then I've known people that were pregnant, had no idea, went to the hospital because they had a kidney stone. They thought they had a kidney stone, and out pops a 7-pound baby girl, right? I mean, the mind is so powerful.
Well, I don't want to rescind what I was just saying, but sometimes something seeps out. PK, psychokinetic, this force can create things. And I don't think it can ever have the power to establish a fully generational curse, that goes down for successive generations. But sometimes the paranormal does happen, does kick in, and what's believed in becomes real, temporarily so. But magic happens. Yeah, sometimes.
So Betsy says, "Do you think some is or can be damned? Would that be a curse?"
So again,
once again, though, to be damned, but
I don't think any of that's inevitable. No, it depends on the psychology of the person afflicted.
I would say that, to kind of reinforce what Carl said, and I know some people don't like to hear the realities of things. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion. Of course, this is all grasping for straws sometimes, but in the reality is that a lot of these cases that we dealt with where curses were apparent, Carl is correct. These things were passed down by the family. They were told by their grandmother, by their mother. Like that's a reflective nature. That's a domino effect that keeps occurring, and people really tend to forget when we are in the womb as in our infertility, like our growing within the embryo as embryo. You know, we can take a lot of the traumas of the mom and a lot of the thoughts, and that can translate into the baby.
Yeah, there's interesting speculation about that.
So,
can prenatal influences actually affect,
of course, they can,
the offspring? You know.
So, like, if that's something that's every day that person thinks they're possessed or they think they have a curse, why can't that be reciprocated to the child, or even if talked about the child? I've always said the greatest thing is a child will never know what a ghost is unless people say this is what a ghost is. If they never watch television, you never talk
Just
about
like a child wouldn't be afraid of snakes and reptiles if they hadn't been
never came across to it.
Cultural.
So it's an interesting thing, right? If they would never talk. Now, if it develops and it was never talked about, that's interesting. But if people start digging and finding information that kind of loosely connects to what they think is going on, they try to connect the dots wrongfully, unfortunately. But yeah, every time that I've come across a case that generational curse or curse, it was passed down by the family by being talked about. It was like something they would talk about on Thanksgiving, or like it was like.
So people just believed that it was happening.
Yeah, the child would have heard it at some point. Of course, at least heard rumors of it. There are some people that are just immune to being cursed. You can curse the bejesus out of them and nothing's going to happen. And they're usually very high-driven, successful, by our cultural standards, successful people that make their way through the world in our society. And the guy's chauffeur is driving him in his Bentley, and he's like looking up his meetings for the day. You can't curse somebody like that who's so preoccupied with their life. You can try to, and eventually his Bentley might get like need a tire replaced or something. But generally, many people are just not susceptible to being cursed, no matter how strong the sender is.
Right.
Unless you get that little PK that seeps out, and strange can't be explained. Every once in a while, the magic works. You just can't rely on it.
I like Gina's question.
I can't like Gina's question unless I lean forward. Yeah.
So
Gina, go ahead. Sorry, it's your show.
It's our show.
Forget that.
It's our show. Gina says, what exactly do you do or have happened that you can deem it demonic?
If it's pesky, if it's irritating, if it's supremely inconvenient, I kind of define a demon as a poltergeist with a bad attitude. And if it has the criteria that you would associate with a demon, people just feel ill when they come into the house, and there's so much to consider and to try and eliminate: radon, seepage, poor oxygen flow, something, electrostatic generators in the vicinity, power lines, so many things can do things. And you try to look for consistencies with that. Sometimes you got just what seems like to be a demonic haunt. You can analyze it, and it still seems demonic. But it's generally criterized by somebody coming into it, and, like even the investigating team, like, ooh, something's wrong, or guests, like, I just don't feel right in this house. You may never decide or determine just what's causing that, but people change. They're especially susceptible, more influenced people, vulnerable people. And I can think of one in particular. It's Carolyn Perrin out in Harrisville those years ago. And if the susceptible person seems to have these mood swings that they didn't have before they lived in that house, or that comes on suddenly, and foul odors that can't be explained, and they come and go. After a while, you kind of get the gist that something's up. There's some kind of presence there.
Right.
Still blame it on the poltergeist phenomenon, which is real. It's poorly understood, of course. But the poltergeist can become hostile. And I think the basic purpose or the basic drive of these spirits is to get attention, to gain validation that, hey, I'm real. You can't see me, but I'm real. And they take on an evanescent life of their own and that's why they create problems and make, the dog's hair fall out, or suddenly pets are dying, and people just don't feel right in the house. It's a cry for attention from a disembodied being, or something that was never physical. But seeps from the mind.
Yeah, because you think about it too. To once reinforce Carl, because man is very well versed.
Thank you.
Well,
I thought about it.
Well, you did, and it's not wrong. I might have a difference of opinion. I think that there might be something a little bit misunderstood as well.
If you got a difference of opinion, you better air it. We're on the Paranormal Brew. Trying to get things out in the open.
But the stanza that they're fallen angels, I really can't say yay or nay, because I don't really know. I don't even know what a ghost is by true definition. Of course, we could think they're replayability, or they're intelligent, and they can be a reinforcement, because both Carl and I have dealt with paranormal phenomena and have dealt with experiences. So that can't be explained. But to me, a demon can be kind of felt, like Carl had loosely talked about. I felt like any case that I've ever worked on that was truly demonic, and that's 5 cases in 15 years. And I think 5 for him for 47 years. That's 10 cases in a very long time. So most of those cases where everybody, even if people claim not to be sensitive, there was some sort of physical ailment that occurred within those individuals. People feeling they were getting punched in the solar plex, fight, fright, or flight. Coming across, I don't want to be here. I want to get out. And
that's
a lot
familiar, yeah. I felt that.
Most of those cases, that's what was involved. To probably 90% of those cases had that. You walk around the property, you knew this was uneasy, this was unsettling. But also, there's religious iconography that's affected. Of course, that could be a psychological thing, because if you feel like you're possessed, or you're going through these things. But once again, if you don't know you're possessed and these are occurring, was there disillusion? Was there hatred for religion before? And that's an echo of the past kind of thing. So there's many ways to look at it. But religious iconography, of course, the feeling, regardless of if you believe you're intuitive or not. And another nature of understanding a demon is, of course, and I think this is true, anybody that has dealt with depression or possession or even an infestation, there was always a trauma involved. And then in those cases had extensive amount of trauma to the individual, to the family, that made this occur. And those 3 possession cases I've dealt with, there was very much so much trauma, but also too, though, a lot of those cases were documented, and there were psychological evaluations done. Physicians were involved. And that's another key thing. If modern science and modern medicine, even though imperfect, it's still developing, cannot
That's the best we got for now.
And it cannot explain what is currently going on like it could not in the medieval ages. That doesn't mean it could be preternatural, but to us, it's supernatural. It's paranormal because it's unknown. But it has still blown these academics, these medical doctors away. One of my prolific cases, a psychologist called me in, and that is life-changing. So
right.
These things to look at. There's things to look at. People jump the gun. They see the television. They think the crockery is thrown around, and all these other things are being done. Yes, that could occur, but sometimes it's over amplified for the
entertainment. And the demon interpretation provides answers, because people will not tolerate a situation that does not have answers. Yeah. So sometimes psychology can't fill in all the blanks. Yeah. And it's like, wait a minute, look at this. It's got, it's a hostile feeling in this house. Mm-hmm. Somebody's mood has changed. Things are moving around, objects disappear, and then they are found in another room. It has to be demonic, because temporary. It's a decompression chamber, an anti-intellectually decompression chamber for a while, until they learn better or learn more. That supplies the answers. Like my first full-blown demonic possession case, that supplied the answers, because the boy was, the subject was a 14-year-old boy. He was being taken over by what seemed to be an invasive personality, Strange things were happening in the house. Yeah, okay, it has to be a demon. We'll approach it as that because they didn't know any better. There wasn't enough to know. It wasn't, like insufficient data. I don't know if I would have called that demonic now, but back then it seemed to be. But he came from a culture that embraced the belief in spirit invasion. The Hispanic origin, and his god aunt or godmother practiced Santeria. So it was just a hotbed for possession, and that's how we had to approach it.
Right.
Strange thing, that PK that seeps out, that doesn't explain thoroughly why his body was being tossed about. It was preternatural. The human body, not even in spasm, can do the things I saw. Climb on walls like Spider-Man, and pictures inverting themselves. It just shouldn't be happening. But it was a hotbed for that PK, for that psychokinetic activity. Because even that was happening because it gave us answers. It created the demon. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But no matter how you analyze it was still a scary situation.
Well, it's interesting because that was my next question, because a lot of times, as a paranormal Casper, as a Casper investigator, I'll say that because that's all I like. Is what I like.
That has a ring to it, doesn't it? Wow. Yeah.
A lot of people that don't do this will say to me, "Oh my gosh, you're going to bring a demon home." Like that's just the perception of people, right? And I look at them and I go, I'm like, it is not that. It's not that prevalent in the world. Like, I mean, I know every single show, whatever you watch, okay, I'm just going to say it. Sorry. I don't mean to disrespect anybody, but I'm just going to put it out there. Ghost Adventures, Dead Files, all those shows, every show, it's something demonic or, wants to kill you, wants to, burn your house down and all this kinds of stuff. So that's just like the thinking of everybody now because of that. So I'm glad that you said that in the 15 years you've had 3 to 5 actual
5 repossession, 2 infestation, oppression, and then I don't know what Carl's. I
rounded it up to 5. Acts that I adjudicated as demonic, and we just don't have, as you know, Tara, we don't have the clinical terminology.
Right.
Makes it sound scientific. Like we could be called chthonikists. That's how's that for a word? Well, if you're British, it's chthonic. But the chthonic gods are underworld gods like Hades, Pluto, in the Greek traditions. And chthonikists would study these things, but nobody cares. Nobody's going to go to a lecture that a chthonikists gives. Demonologist, yeah. Oh, I don't know if I want to bring my kids to that, but I got to see that.
It's interesting because I just started, like I was telling you, I just started on the Paranormal Thing radio network, and then so I'm also streaming on Inner Demon Media. Now, I was going to have a guest on, and unfortunately, he canceled because of that.
Oh, there are some people.
He's very involved with the church, and I think and it's not anything like that. You know what I mean? But the name, I guess, kind of, and I'm fine. I respect his views, his feelings. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm a little like, well, why didn't you just talk to me about it first? You know what I mean? But I'm not gonna force or pressure or push anybody to come on. You know what I mean? If you're uncomfortable with it, you're uncomfortable with it. Whatever. I respect it. But that's automatically, I've had people on that this is going to sound, because I don't know a lot about it, but people that are Satanists, but it doesn't necessarily mean
they're evil.
What people think it means. They don't run around worshiping the guy with the big red guy with horns and, and summoning demons and Satan himself.
There's no getting away from that connotation. No, you're gonna call yourself, as I did, a Luciferan. And
right.
Satanist. You're going to take your lumps socially. You're going to be ostracized. It's just you get invited to some parties. In fact, you'll be the entertainment at some parties, but people don't really want to reach out to you if you're known as that. And you can get up on a stage and say, well, not negative. I never sacrificed an animal. I'm not throwing curses around or something like that. It doesn't matter. It's in one ear and out the other because people know that name. Ooh, the Lucifer guy. Lucifer was never a devil until the Middle Ages.
Wait,
Late
wait. Are we talking about Lucifer that's on Netflix? Because I'm all about that. Like, I would totally welcome that.
He's bringing a good slant to that, isn't he? Yeah, I like his eyes. I'd invite him to a party. Yeah.
I would invite him to all of my parties.
Well, to even be honest, though, we get ostracized as well. At least I do as a demonologist. I've been ordained in 2 different churches in Christianity, and people hear demonologist and fellow Catholics or fellow Christians like look at me like what do you do? Why do you do that? Like
I still hear that.
Which is crazy to me because
I know what he said.
Like I don't help people. Like I'm a mediator. I do my best to help and assist people, but like I do my best to perform a ministry for good deeds. I'm not a perfect person, but I try to do good deeds every day. I try to be a good person. But people ostracize me for that. They're like, you're a devil worshiper. Then I tell them what I do, and they're like, you're still talking about demons. So even though we're not Satanists,
that's what gives the demons their power because it's so dreaded. Even the word,
Right.
Orthonicist. We're Orthonicists now.
Orthonicist, yeah.
Okay. Well, we will be for the next 45 minutes.
But I will say though, and this reflects to Darren's question. If I can follow up after you answer that question, say that question, Taryn, if you want to use.
Yeah, you can say it. I mean,
right.
I'm kind of piggybacking off of Darren. So what I was going to say was those 5 that you had to do. I'm totally ignorant to this, but it comes from movies and what you think you have to do, right? So is it true though that you have to get permission to be able to perform an exorcism on someone? One,
depends on where you're going to and from. If you're going to perform, as James well knows, at least as well versed in this as am I, to perform the Catholic rite, mind you, of exorcism. Yes, unless you want to be frowned upon or defrocked by the church, you do need the permission of the church. Mm-hmm. It's a hierarchy. It has to come down to you. If you want to do that standard type of exorcism.
Even the Episcopal churches like that, Pentecostal church, many churches have a structure. There are some willy-nilly go out there and do stuff. Like how I was deliverance minister for the Church of Christ. I never had to get permission to go do deliverances, even though it is not an exorcism. It was based on my judgment. But most of the time, those kind of churches perform deliverances and during Mass, during their processions. So which
is such a hypocrisy when they frown upon the fact that what we do.
Well, the thing is, though, it's misunderstood. So a lot of people don't understand the politics of the church. They hear about on television or hear people's opinions. Yes, I was always hatred of the Catholic Church in the way they did things. Yes, it is very political, and a lot of people can pinpoint the bad things about it. But I understand the hesitancy, their disallowance of thinking it's a demon, because a lot of them are very, especially exorcists, are very well versed. They have PhDs in psychology. A lot of people don't understand that about exorcists. They're not stupid people. They're so academic beyond most understanding. They have like 4 or 5 different degrees.
But are they divorced from superstition?
So they're not. But a lot of them do pinpoint it accurately towards the psychological realm before jumping.
There's a lot of study and preparation involved, but I've performed what I could call field exorcisms, which is an expulsion, a form of non-formalized exorcism. When something had to be done, I'll take my lumps later, I'll get criticized maybe, but I've got to help this person now. This is what's happening. I've got to instill confidence in this person that I can help them, and that's why I've done them.
But in that same stanza, though, is you think as much as we hear about exorcisms of possessions in the Western Hemisphere, and the Western culture is so well versed with it, you actually go over to Rome, Italy, a lot of Europa. You'll actually see that they're more versed in the supernatural than we are. Like Rome, in comparison, imagine Italy compared to the United States. Italy,
I'm trying to imagine Italy. I want to take somebody there someday.
Italy has.
I'll go.
Wouldn't that be nice? The wines we could try and all that.
Italy has more cases of demonic possession and more exorcisms done than the United States has ever had in a year. In a year, compare Italy years possession rate, like people getting exorcism, to the United States, crazy numbers. Like, so people think that it's kind of like Wild Wild West out here with it. It's actually more centric over in Europe and all those areas because it's more old culture, and it's still very prevalent over there. So we think we have it bad here, and we think exorcisms are going crazy everywhere. Go to Italy, talk to some of the priests out there, like Father Gabriel Morth.
That's not what's kept me away from Italy.
Yeah. Father Gabriel Morth, the chief exorcist. Now he's of course passed away, but he performed like in his time over 1,000, if not like I think he 10,000 exorcisms.
It's more accepted, it's more embraced as a reality over there. In fact, it is thought that that's why demons fear Latin.
Yeah.
Why Latin prayer is effective against demons, because it's an ancient language by our standards. It's a dead language that's got a mystical quality to it. Oh, what do we have here? Italian exorcisms. Italian exorcisms can take years. That's submitted by Miss Elise G. Marco Carlson, whom well we know. Yeah, they can take. Very true. We think of an exorcism like bring somebody in, do the prayers over them. They're cured there. It might take 2 sessions. But Italian exorcism, the person will come back again and again. It's like a psychiatric treatment. Demons do not easily release their hold, and it can take months, hopefully and prayerfully not. It can take years for somebody to be cured. And even then, there's that opening, that fissure.
Yeah. And I know it was a joke, but it's not just Italian exorcism. Exorcism in the United States could take several years. Like Robbie of The Exorcist, the original.
The story was predicated, yes.
Yeah, that wasn't just a day. That was over a period of a year, I do believe. So it's still, regardless, it couldn't take extensive. But in the general sense, though, if you look at Hippocrates, the father of medicine, right? He performed exorcisms on people as a form of psychotherapy. So it, in general sense, is still, even though it could be a supernatural, spiritual warfare battle, in sense, it's still a psychotherapy because the person that has been overcome, once again, has given up. So they have to regain their will, their confidence in themselves, and their structure, their faith. So it's a rebuilding. It's a psychotherapy. You have to pull that person back.
Yeah, but I think he was kind of a hypocrite, don't you?
Hypocrisy?
No, hypocrite.
So there's
You have to explain it. It's not funny anymore.
Oh, okay.
Hello.
So there's like a lot of questions happening.
Hmm.
So I don't know if that answered Darren. Darren, I don't know if that answered your question about how different the exorcism are today versus 25 years ago. I mean, people are a lot more psychotic and crazy and have lost their shits minds. So I don't know how. It must be harder to find that line as to whether or not it really is in fact something happening.
It has increased.
It's just
past 25 years, it has increased. Of course, entertainment. The church has approached more exorcists with it, within training, with sending people to the Vatican. So it has ramped up, but more people involved. Like the paranormal wasn't on television in the sense it was.
Yeah, it has
now. More people are dabbling, kind of investigating. So they're opening themselves up more. Back in the day, you had Leonard Nimoy, and you had like Tales of the Crypt and Scooby Doo that kind of touched upon the basis.
In Search of and all that.
Yeah, but you had some touching of it. Science fiction and talks about angels and demons and stuff like that. But now, because the paranormal is so prevalent, it's so out there, and there's movies on it, The Conjuring, Insidious,
that's everywhere.
Exorcism, Emily Rose, The Rite, all these movies that have been predicated on true events. Now they're part of entertainment.
Well, it's a population explosion. Yeah. There are more people around. People want to be entertained, more curious. They want intellectual stimulation. So, of course, the paranormal is going to come into more prominence.
And more people. 25 years ago, there wasn't 7 billion, or what is there now? Like 7.6 billion?
That much? I was going to say it's like 7.3. But
7.3?
Well, that may have changed.
But 25 years ago, it was only probably, 5 billion people. What? Right? I can't say give or take, but what do you think?
I don't want it to get to 8 billion, I'll tell you that. But it's
Well,
not.
It will. But
This is interesting. So Matt Rice, he says, I always thought it wasn't a hard task because demons have to follow rule of God, and by saying Jesus commands you to leave this body, they have no choice but to leave. That's why possession is rare. And that's why demons don't want to be found out, because they too have to follow the rule of God. Of course, this is just what I've heard and my thought. So I think what he's saying is like they lay low, because if they are around or known, it's easy to rid them, for the lack of better description of wording.
yeah,
It should be that direct, and it should be that symbol applying up.
And he's a fan of yours, Carl.
What's that?
He's a fan of yours. He said, much respect to Carl.
Thank you so much. That makes me want to keep talking. Good. I do appreciate it. Thank you very much. Oh, I got plenty. I got plenty.
But yeah, so I mean, that's an interesting thought process for sure. I mean, I've never thought about that, but I think that makes sense.
Well, they do lay in the shadows. Like I always say that they're parasitical. Like you don't know you have a virus. Like when we got COVID, we both didn't know we had COVID. Like when you have the flu, you don't know you have the flu right away. When you have a stomach bug, the bug doesn't come on you right away. So it's parasitical. It's unseen. It strikes when you least expect it, and they do lay in the shadows. And also, I do believe if there is a name given, and that is the name of the personality or the entity, it is easier to release. But they always do say, and we've talked about it, if you have the Holy Spirit within you, nothing else can take over you, because there's only one.
Well, yes. I mean, if you're an empty vessel, you can be filled with the Holy Spirit. Then there's not room for the invasive
spirit.
Called demons, the invasive spirits. I don't know why the Holy Spirit doesn't get as much press.
Yeah. Right.
To the evil entities.
Yeah, I don't understand. I don't understand that either. I mean, it's sad, because like that is, what is like driving this whole paranormal force is like people want to see the negative. People want to hear about the negative. It's like, why? Even the news, they don't ever say, oh, we planted trees everywhere. Now we're going to have more of that. And we're saving animals over here. And we're doing this. No, it's all about this person was shot and this, and oh my God, the building fell and somebody got it on YouTube. And there's, I mean, like everything has to be, everything
people
is
like people are drawn to the outrageous and the expansive. That's what people is stimulating. It's unusual.
Yeah, I mean, it's just really, I don't watch the news anymore because I can't watch it. I can't stand all the negative and all the.
If you're empathic, the news is hard to do. In other words, if you don't so much mean in a metaphysical sense, but you keep that with you. Like if I hear about tragedies, that's with me for the day. I can't divorce myself from it.
And I do want to make a note though, is like you can be oppressed by a so-called demonic force, and it can never lead to possession stage. Like you can always be oppressed the rest of your life, as long as, of course, that personality, that demonic entity, had that continuation to do and keep seeking its prey as a predator. So that can always happen. Padre Pio is a perfect example. It was one of the reasons he became a saint. One of the reasons, of course, he was oppressed and he never gave up. He believed in agape, which is the true love of God. And they say if you have the true love of God, unconditional love, then nothing can take over you. Nothing can nothing can ever take your faith away, because it's so strong. Because where people start to deceive is when their faith is broken and they start not believing in themselves, not believing in their faith. So you can always be oppressed.
Right. Todd Weaver says, do you find that any of your cases are influenced by Hollywood?
Practically all of them, because people have that definition of what a demon does. It invades, it curses, comes to the forefront, is hostile, and all that.
Yeah, we have had clients call us for help and then tell us we were wrong, and also tell us that this is what it is. Because what they watched on television or what they read or have been told. So it's pretty interesting when you're called and you're told you're wrong. And I've had even teams call me, and they have had their opinion of what a demon is. And, you know, they see Carl or I's help or somebody else within the realms of what we do, and then they don't like what they hear, and they tell us we're wrong. So, you know, Hollywood has perceived a lot of people's perceptions.
And what's hard to realize is that every case is different because we're dealing with individuals and individual needs and individual perceptions. So what works for one might not be successful for another.
Sure.
Darren says, how many exorcisms have gone wrong and have they recovered from them?
Many. Go ahead.
Yes,
I
no.
don't think they could ever just go right without a hitch, right? I mean,
Some do.
The Warrens had Ed and Lorraine Warren had a famous case. This man was under terrible possession. I do not consider, although remarkable things happened with this individual, I don't think it was all like the demon pulling him apart, you know. He had a strange and troubled past.
You're talking about Maurice?
Maurice is the one. Yeah, in fact, there's footage of Maurice. You
Yeah,
can look that up, and it's in the Warrens files. And he was never totally freed from this, but he's in an interesting case study.
Yeah, he killed himself.
Annalise McCall, you know, is another one. The people, and I've known people that, you know, I've helped a person in Bowie, Maryland. That well, actually that one was Baltimore, and we thought she was freed of the oppression and what was happening in her house, and she just never really was. They're not all success stories. I would consider that first exorcism case in which I was involved, I would consider that a success, allowing that a lot of it was the psychodrama that prevailed. You couldn't reason this young man out of it, what was happening, but it freed him. You know, it worked. It was worth doing. You can analyze it afterwards, but we had to act. And how about, oh, what's that? I'll interrupt myself. It's her. What does that say?
It is a good statement, though. Blamelessness. The devil made me do it.
Yeah, like the title of the Conjuring 3.
Yeah.
The Conjuring 3, the devil made me do it.
Arnie Johnson.
Yeah. Well, that has been tried and true throughout the ages. That, you know, the devil made me do it. It wasn't me. You know. And I was told by an evangelist, and he told the whole congregation that every thought we have comes from either God or the devil. Doesn't leave any room for free choice in that.
Angel and demon on your shoulders.
Yeah. Well, I don't subscribe to, you know, angels and demons duking it out over the souls of humans as much as I used to. But yeah, that's a convenient scapegoat there. Now, somebody has to invite the spirit. Somebody has to have a predilection toward that. They have to invite the evil spirit in somehow, for some means. I don't know. It's, you know, using Ouija boards and getting up. Not that I mind Ouija boards, but, you know, but becoming obsessed with any divination tool or anything like that. Becoming obsessed with the tarot cards and believing a spirit is controlling them through it, and it goes wrong. Yeah, that's an invitation. Or just being a preponderance for negativity. That can be an invitation to demonic influence. So, but yeah, it's hard to say where that line crosses, but there's free will. It does happen, you know. Rush through that, you know. But there is a point where people surrender their will, but they do it by their own volition. They had the will to stop it at a certain point. The devil made me do it.
But I feel like that it takes control. Like, you know, that's why I feel like those people don't pick the phone.
Later stages, yeah.
Hey, you know, hey, I need help, because whatever's controlling them doesn't want the help.
And then you've got schizophrenia, and you've got this
right.
Well, yeah, but most of the time when they're possessed, they don't perceive what's going on. It's not them. So like they lose time. So of course they don't understand. To them, it's an occurrence. It's something like unknown. Like what? And they think a lot of the times they think it's medical. They get medically tested. They go see a psychiatrist or psychologist. And sometimes they pass flying colors, and that where lies the issue. But I actually do want to hit this question. Do you know of anyone who hasn't been Christian, Catholic, or who has been possessed? Every culture has it. Judaism, where Christianity comes from. You know, the Divic, the lost soul, they possessed because they were tormented. They seeked an answer, so they would possess the living to solve their situation, or they would be so tormented that they would afflict humanity because they were killed by humans.
Oh yeah, it's part of the human condition, like again, cultural. demons, the wanton evil spirits. And a demon originally meant a spirit imbued with wisdom, and a wise one. Yeah. You put away your Dybbuk box, didn't you? Because I don't see it out here.
No. But yeah,
I don't keep that out.
But
your son comes over.
But yeah, like you said, in Greek mythology, they were overseers to the gods. They would basically they would be messengers to the gods by basically stating humanity did this wrong, did that, and then of course then they would be punished because they would go back to the gods and say they.
So there was a rite of exorcism in each faith. I would qualify that as yes.
Yes. Of course,
a very umbrella answer, but yes.
I mean, even back when, like back. I mean, you go back to ancient civilizations and stuff. I mean, they used to do things, when people passed, or when they didn't know any better, they used to do things to prevent negative or bad spirits from. I mean, that is a ritual, right? I mean, that's like something.
You've heard of tryptophaning, where the skull is actually opened up and they don't know why it was happening. There are examples of ancient humans. I don't know if it goes back as far as archaic Homo sapiens, but it goes back to what we classify the Cro-Magnons. There are holes in skulls. Though it was done as tryptophaning when the person was alive, because the bones showed signs of healing, closing. Why would they drill a hole in someone's head?
Mm-hmm. So
except for I mean, they didn't know about a neurosurgeon, neurosurgery, but they drilled holes in their heads, I think, to let out evil spirits, to let something bad that was in, to let something out.
Yeah,
I can't think of a medical purpose for it. It's fascinating to think of.
Well, true. The oldest modern day religion, Hinduism, has one of the oldest rituals of exorcism. And it's called the Kali dagger, or the furba, most people know it as. And what they would do is that this dagger would be the containment for the demon. They would perform a ritual, and then to release the demon, they would stab a bowl of rice or in the dirt, and that would disperse the demonic force. So even Hinduism, the oldest modern day religion by 4,400 years old, predates Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, and all modern day religion basically, had the rite of exorcism. So that had an exorcism. I'm pretty sure the faiths that really are unknown to us still, and the civilizations that we're still discovering, had some form of exorcism or expulsion.
Yeah, because if you're going into if you could observe a truly primitive culture, like prehistory, which we can't know about them except that they had some language and art to their culture. What would you think if you saw this person is going under fits? They have it like epilepsy or some disorder of the mind and body. They are brought into the witch doctor. They're brought into the wise person, and he performs this surgical procedure where they actually cut open a hole in his head. Now, it had some logic to it. If there's nothing else to be done, maybe it helped. And maybe there's something really nebulous that, like, they had some medical procedure. They were doing like a limited lobotomy or something. Who knows? But to actually open up somebody's skull and put a quarter-size hole in their head, there had to be a real purpose to do that. And I think they were letting out the evil influence.
Yeah, it wasn't for swallowing the brain, because
could cause swelling of the brain.
Yeah,
right. Really quick, because we're rounding down here. We can continue this on the brew. I don't even care. Like we can stop this and then just continue on to the brew, because I love talking to you guys. But Darren asked, he always has good questions. I love when he comes on.
Yeah.
Do you think we could see another exorcism case in the courts? Seems how the Warrens had a hard time proving to the public.
Only if it was punitive. Only if there were like charges for it, like why did you let this person starve, or why did you perform such a brutal procedure over this person that messed their minds up? I don't think it would ever be, and it wasn't then either. I don't think they'll ever try to adjudicate in a court of law if somebody was possessed or not. I think we're way past that.
Yeah.
The ramifications, though, somebody this was criminal intent when you performed it, or gross neglect when you performed this exorcism and didn't seek proper medical help. In that category, yeah, there could be. But I don't think it will ever. I think that court case with the Warren set a precedent, and it was not as big a deal as it was made out to be in the press. But I don't think anybody will question whether somebody was possessed. They'll question their degree of mental illness or instability.
Yeah, and to reflect upon that as well, and to add more is it's not in the news all the time, but there are a lot of people that actually say that they were possessed by a demon, and that's why they. But it's not in the news as much anymore because people have come to understand that they basically are mentally ill. They have a psychosis issue. A lot of serial killers have said that they have been spoken to do so. So it is prevalent, but it's not in the media because it's not as interesting. You know, I think last time it was interesting before The Conjuring 3 was when Gravediggers made a song called Diary of a Madman. So, you know, I think it's there, but people don't hear about it. Unless of course you're involved in it like Carl and I.
Yeah, and there is a line. Sometimes people really are possessed in that sense. They're hearing the voices. They've got something invading their mind. Yeah. Some conduit in their mind.
But to tell you the truth is to add a recent case. I don't know how recent it was. I was involved with a documentary being filmed. I don't know if it's ever going to happen, but if you ever watched A Hostage to the Devil, it was supposed to be A Hostage to the Devil Part 2, where they were supposed to bring this girl from Germany who was family friends with Anneliese Michel's family and slept on her bed and then started having fits of rage and all this stuff. But one of the crazy things is, this is like probably a couple of years ago, is when Anneliese Michel's case happened in Germany and she died because of malnutrition, because of exorcisms, they actually banned exorcisms in Germany. They alleviated that and allowed the church to perform exorcisms again for a couple of years. And then basically what happened, there was an Ella death, and then they banned it again. So that the moral of the story, why they
haven't you people learned?
We're going to do part 2 was to bring the girl from Germany to the United States to get the exorcism performed, because there was data proving that this was occurring. But guess what? Somebody died in Germany a few years ago, so they banned it again. So it does happen where bad situations do occur, and where it is occurring and the court's involved. So you just have to just look for it.
Yeah, I mean, I remember the last thing I ever saw, like and the only reason I bring this up is funny because I'm looking for a house. I keep telling my realtor, if you come across any haunted houses, I want to look at them. I was like,
yeah, right.
Home is where the haunt is. Let's do it.
You're in New Jersey, right?
Yeah.
Is New Jersey a state where the realtors have to state that it is haunted or not? Is that a rule there?
I think so. I think they don't. I don't think they have to, but if asked, they have to tell. Like it's not something they have to disclose.
Well, that's the way it is. That non-disclosure is if asked.
Yeah.
I think New York is more stringent in that you have to volunteer that information. Yeah.
Yeah, and there was a case that actually was on the news where people wanted to move out and break their lease. They were renting because they were having all kinds of stuff happen, and the people actually won, and they let them move out, and they didn't owe the but they had to prove stuff. They had like the video cameras. I remember the news team went in there, and stuff happened while the news team was there.
I like that.
Well, to state one book that people need to, actually it's not really a book, it's more a pamphlet, kind of like a little short story, but it's fascinating to me when it comes to haunted houses. Read A Haunted House by Charles Dickens, and if you don't know who Charles Dickens is, for God, please don't tell me that.
He told a good ghost story.
He did, many ghost stories.
Yeah.
But, yes.
So, before like I said, we can continue. Anybody that's watching, we can continue this if you guys want to. If not, I
love you, but I have had a long week, especially being in the hospital all night with my little one last night.
Oh, I know. I'm so sorry. How is he?
I didn't get home until like 11 o'clock last night. I was in the hospital for almost 6 hours. So he's all right. Yeah, he's all right. He was playing Nerf guns with his buddy, and he decided to go for a tumble and fall, and it was a pretty brutal cut, I would say. He definitely split his head open. It probably seemed about an inch and a half inch, I think is what it is.
Yeah, I saw him this evening.
Yeah, so.
Talking about a troubling week, I was also hospitalized because I came close to having some very involved surgery, which could have cost me my leg because I was hiking. You can see a little tiny remnant here.
Oh yeah.
I had a lot of those, but I was hiking with a hiking partner of mine, and there I was suddenly at the bottom of a ravine, and she's saying, "Car!" No, but it didn't happen that way, but it might as well have, because this has been a succession of injuries I've been giving to my leg that I didn't know, and finally a muscle and a tendon is what they feel it is, snapped. And my leg, it looks like somebody stuffed my left leg. It looks like somebody stuffed a croquet ball in my calf over the muscle.
Yikes.
And I was screaming in pain. If you ever saw a scene in the movie Deliverance where Burt Reynolds' leg is horrifically injured and he's screaming and holding it, that's what I was doing. Elise got to hear me scream at the top of my lungs. Fortunately, she didn't hear most of it, but she saw me moaning and gasping in pain, and it was horrific. And I'm still not out of the woods yet. I have with an orthopedic specialist. I have an appointment coming up, and I wish it was sooner, because I guess it's healing. I'm not sure. I don't know what's going on in that process, but I was candidate for surgery.
I hope you're okay, and I hope everything's. Keep me posted.
Well, I'm glad to be here. Let's put it that way.
In that sense, because of the bad things that occurred the past couple of days, we shall play the song from Deliverance.
Oh my God. Hey, with that, can you just tell everybody where they can find you if they have any questions, if they need to reach you, if they need to tell you stories, if they want to reach out to you, where can they find
on the website? Yes, demonology.com. I mean, it's
.org.
.org. I finally slipped and said
.org.
.org. Yeah, the educated platform. Yeah, the educated platform.org server is it's demonology spelled the modern way with a Y at the end and no A. DEMONOLOGY.org. And the ubiquitous Facebook. I'm on Facebook. Look up Carl L. Johnson in Rhode Island, and contact Paranormal Brew. You can hook us up.
Yeah. Duo Daemonologie on Facebook.
Yeah. Duo Daemonologie. If you keep looking for Duo Daemonologie or demonologists in Rhode Island, you will find us.
Yeah. Thank you, Elise.
Yeah. Look, somebody's fast at the draw.
Okay, so I got to give a shout out. This is my girl, Jing. She is in Indonesia. She's in Indonesia. Never misses a show. I love her. Yes. Doesn't matter what.
And she's famous in her country too. She's an actress.
She is an actress. She's a movie star.
Really?
Yeah, she was a child actress, but she still does movies.
Yeah. She never told me this. I give her a shout out. I love her so much. I think I love her so much.
Watch your movies then.
I love you.
I had no idea.
Yeah, and you pronounce her name Ajang, but she'll know who you mean.
So here's Paranormal King Radio Network. Great show, Tyron James and Carl, and thank you, everybody.
Okay.
All right, so thank you, you two. I miss you. We have to set another date. So James, I will message you, or Carl, one of you, two of you, please. We have to set another date.
Be able to hobble in next time,
Well, what we can do? We can always do the Paranormal Brew live from Gettysburg.
Oh, yes. Yes, that would be awesome.
Next month.
You're going to the bash.
We will be bringing the Monster Bash. The Monster Bash.
I don't see why you can't swing over, Miss Taryn, and visit us there.
Oh, I'll be there. I'm going to be there.
That'll take up your weekend, but yeah.
I will be there from Thursday to Sunday. I'm there the whole time.
I'll be there Friday morning.
Yeah.
Carl too.
Yeah.
But I love you guys. Thank you so much.
I wish we had time to talk to everybody, but we'll try to get to all your questions.
Yeah. I'm sorry if I missed anybody, but thank you so much for joining, and thank you to everybody that came on. And I'll see you guys next week. And sayonara.
All right. Good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.